Have you ever loved someone who made you feel small, even while pretending to lift you up? Someone who smiled sweetly in public but left you questioning your worth in private? You told yourself it was love. You told yourself they'd change. You told yourself you were the problem, but deep down, you knew something wasn't right. There's a kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises, it leaves confusion. It makes you doubt your memories, your heart, your voice. Narcissists are masters of that kind of wound. They don't break you all at once. They do it slowly, gently, so you never notice the cracks forming until one day you don't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. You might still be replaying every moment, wondering what you did wrong. You might think, if only I had been more patient, more kind, more forgiving. But the truth is harsher and simpler than that. You were never the problem. You were the supply, and they knew it. In this space, I want you to breathe. I want you to feel safe enough to see clearly what they've hidden. Because narcissists thrive in the shadows, in your confusion, in your silence, in your hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll love you back the way you love them. But today, we pull back the curtain. There are 7 truths they pray you'll never learn. 7 revelations that can break the spell they've cast over your heart. Some of these truths will sting, some will set you free, and all of them will remind you of one thing. You are not crazy. You are not unlovable. You were simply targeted by someone who saw your light and tried to claim it as their own. Take a deep breath. You don't need to take notes or figure it all out at once. Just listen. Let the words sink in like gentle rain over a wound that's been waiting to heal. You don't need to fight for understanding anymore. You just need to remember who you are. If this message already feels like a whisper to your soul, stay with me. There's more truth coming, the kind that finally makes everything make sense. And if your heart's been aching for answers, for clarity, for peace, this is your sign to keep listening. Before we begin, if you want more moments like this gentle, raw healing, make sure you're part of this space. Subscribe, not just to a channel, but to a community where your pain is seen and your healing matters. Like this message, if it already speaks to you, because sometimes a simple gesture says, yes, I'm ready to heal. Now, let's begin revealing what they never wanted you to know. The first truth they pray you'll never learn is that their love was never love. It was a performance, a carefully crafted illusion. In the beginning, it felt like magic, like you had finally found someone who saw you, cherished you, celebrated you. They mirrored your dreams, your values, your kindness. They studied the language of your heart just to speak it fluently. And for a moment, you believed it. You believed they were the one who could finally make you feel safe, seen, whole. But it was never love. It was a transaction. They gave affection only to secure control. They showered you with attention only to make you dependent. Every I love you was a rope pulling you deeper into their web. And once you were hooked, once your heart beat in rhythm with theirs, the warmth began to fade. Suddenly, the person who once praised you began to criticize you. The one who made you feel special now made you feel inadequate. You started to question what you did wrong, not realizing that the rules had changed and they were the ones rewriting them. Because for a narcissist, the thrill isn't in loving you. It's in watching you twist yourself into knots, trying to earn their love back. They want you chasing what never existed. They want you believing that the love-bombing phase, that whirlwind of passion and promises was real. It wasn't. It was bait. The hardest part? You may still crave it. You may still ache for the person they pretended to be. But that person was a mask, a reflection of everything you wanted, not who they truly are. And every time you hope they'll return to that version, you hand them the power to hurt you again. Pause for a moment, breathe, let that truth settle. You didn't lose a soulmate. You lost a shapeshifter. You didn't ruin love. You revealed manipulation. The illusion of love is how they control you. But the moment you see it for what it is, their power begins to crumble. They can no longer dangle false promises in front of your aching heart. They can no longer rewrite the story to make you the villain. You start to see the pattern, the idealization, the devaluation, the discard. You realize how they love bomb to hook, criticize to weaken, and withdraw to punish. You see that their affection isn't unconditional. It's a weapon used to keep you compliant. They never wanted you to learn this truth because once you do, the spell breaks. The fog lifts. The longing fades. And you begin to grieve not the loss of them, but the loss of who you thought they were. It's okay to mourn the dream. It's okay to miss the fantasy. But don't mistake the illusion for reality. The person who made you feel alive was never real, and the person who made you feel small was always there, waiting to emerge. You didn't imagine the pain. You didn't exaggerate the cruelty. It happened, and now you see it. And maybe right now, your heart whispers, "But I still want them to love me." That's not weakness. That's your wounded self longing for the comfort of the lie. But healing begins when you stop reaching for the mask and start reaching for yourself. The truth hurts, but it also frees. Because when you stop chasing the version of them that never existed, you finally have room to become the version of you that's been waiting, the one who doesn't need to beg for love, prove their worth, or accept crumbs disguised as devotion. They never loved you the way you deserved because they never learned how to love anyone but themselves. But now you know. Their affection was an illusion. Their promises were chains. And your yearning was the doorway to awakening. You are not broken for believing. You are human. You are soft-hearted in a world that can be cruel. And now that you see the truth, you are also powerful. The second truth they pray you'll never learn is that their cruelty is deliberate. You may tell yourself, they didn't mean it. They were just hurt. They had a bad day. You excuse the sharp words, the silent treatments, the disappearing acts. You explain away the lies, the manipulation, the coldness that follows every moment of warmth. But here's what's hard to accept. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how to make you question yourself. They know when to pull away just enough to make you chase them. They know how to twist your words so you feel guilty for speaking your truth. They know how to sprinkle affection like crumbs, just enough to keep you hungry, never enough to satisfy you. They call it love while tightening the leash. They smile while tearing at your self-worth. It's not an accident, it's a pattern. Narcissists feed on your confusion. It's their favorite weapon, because when you're confused, you stop trusting yourself. And when you stop trusting yourself, you'll believe whatever story they tell you. They rewrite reality, and you become a character in their version, the one who's always overreacting, always too sensitive, always wrong. Do you remember the first time you cried in front of them, thinking they'd comfort you? Instead, they sighed, rolled their eyes, or told you you were being dramatic. That was not a misunderstanding, it was a message. Your emotions don't matter unless they benefit me. They want you to doubt your feelings, to swallow your voice, to walk on eggshells, because a person who doubts themselves is easy to control. Every cruel joke, every backhanded compliment, every cold shoulder, it's all part of the dance. A dance where they lead, and you try desperately to follow, hoping one day they'll stop stepping on your heart. But they won't, because their cruelty isn't random. It's calculated. It's how they maintain power. They want you to crave their approval, to ache for their validation, to measure your worth by how they treat you. And when they withhold love, they're not forgetting, they're reminding you who's in charge. This truth is hard because it asks you to let go of the hope that it was all a misunderstanding. It asks you to see the person behind the mask, someone who chooses control over compassion, dominance over tenderness. It doesn't mean they never smiled, never laughed, never seemed kind. They did. That's what makes the cruelty so devastating. The contrast between their charm and their coldness keeps you hooked, always chasing the version of them that felt safe. But love shouldn't be a guessing game. Love shouldn't make you anxious, small, or scared. Love shouldn't punish you for having needs. Take a breath. You've been trying to make sense of nonsense. You've been trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You didn't fail. You simply met someone who used love as a leash, and kindness as currency. Someone who found joy not in loving you, but in controlling how you feel. The moment you see their cruelty as intentional, everything changes. You stop excusing their behavior. You stop making yourself smaller to fit their comfort. You stop hoping they'll wake up one day and realize how much they've hurt you. Because now you know. They already know. They just don't care. And that's not your fault. It's their emptiness. You were the mirror that showed them what love could look like, and they shattered it because they couldn't bear to see what they lacked. Let this truth sink in, even if it trembles inside your chest. You are not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are someone who feels deeply, who loves wholeheartedly, and that is not a flaw. Their cruelty is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their void. And no amount of love from you could ever fill it. You didn't deserve the silence, the manipulation, the games. You deserve softness, understanding, truth. They will never give it, but now you can. Because the second you see their cruelty as deliberate, you stop blaming yourself for the pain they caused. And that's the beginning of your freedom. The third truth they pray you'll never learn is that they study your wounds to use them against you. When they first meet you, they don't just listen to your stories, they examine them. They learn your fears, your insecurities, your heartbreaks. They pay attention to the moments when your voice softens, when your eyes dim, when you share the pain you've carried alone for years, and you think you're safe. You think you've found someone who finally sees you, who understands the parts of you you've always hidden. But narcissists don't seek understanding to heal you. They seek information to control you. They file away your vulnerabilities like secrets in a locked drawer. Then, when the time comes, they open it. They use your past as ammunition. Your trust becomes their weapon. Your softness becomes their leverage. If you told them about the parent who made you feel unseen, they'll withhold attention until you beg for it. If you told them about the ex who betrayed you, they'll flirt with others just enough to make you doubt your worth. If you told them you fear abandonment, they'll disappear when you need them most, just to watch you crumble. And every time they do, they say things like, "You're overreacting," or "You're too emotional," or "You're imagining things." They make you feel crazy for reacting to the very pain they're causing. That's not an accident. It's a strategy. They learned your wounds so they could reopen them. They studied your heart so they could bend it. They never wanted to heal you. They wanted to own you. And what hurts most is that you thought your honesty would bring you closer. You believed that vulnerability was intimacy. You showed them your scars, hoping they'd hold them with care, but instead, they traced the outlines like a roadmap for destruction. This is why the relationship felt so confusing, because sometimes they did comfort you only to later use the same pain to hurt you again. One moment, they seemed like your healer. The next, they became your wound. But here's the truth, they can't stand. The very wounds they use to control you are also the keys to your freedom. Because when you start to see the pattern, how they trigger you, how they manipulate your fears, how they pull your strings, you begin to reclaim your power. You realize their cruelty isn't proof of your brokenness. It's proof of their emptiness. And when you tend to your wounds with compassion, when you stop waiting for them to be gentle and start being gentle with yourself, the chains begin to break. You learn to say, "Yes, I was hurt before, but that does not give you permission to hurt me again." You learn to set boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. You learn that your softness is not weakness, it is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it. They don't want you to heal, because a healed version of you can no longer be controlled. They don't want you to remember your worth, because your worth is the one thing they can't steal. But you're remembering now, aren't you? You're seeing how they mirrored your dreams, only to turn them into doubts. You're realizing that their affection was not safety, it was surveillance. You're awakening to the truth. They never wanted to love you. They wanted to own the parts of you that still longed for love. And as painful as it is, that realization is your doorway to freedom. Because once you see how they used your wounds, you stop giving them the tools. You stop explaining, defending, proving. You start walking, quietly, powerfully. Healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means reclaiming what was taken: your trust, your voice, your light. And with every step back toward yourself, their grip weakens. They built their power on your pain, but once you start healing, they lose their throne. So, take another breath. Let the ache settle. You don't need to rush this. You've been hurt deeply, but the fact that you still seek truth, still choose love, still yearn to understand, that means they never destroyed you. They only revealed how strong your heart truly is. The fourth truth they pray you'll never learn is that their apologies mean nothing. You've heard the words before. I'm sorry. Maybe they even cried. Maybe they held your hands and looked into your eyes with that soft, trembling voice that made you believe them. You wanted so badly to believe them because you love deeply and you forgive easily. You thought love meant understanding, compassion, second chances. But with them, the apology was never the beginning of change. It was just another tactic, a pause button to keep you from leaving. Their sorry was not a bridge back to trust. It was a leash. It was meant to quiet your pain long enough for them to regain control. They apologized just enough to reset the cycle, to convince you that the nightmare is over. They say the right words, they make grand gestures, they act sweet for a while. And for a moment, you breathe again. You think, maybe this time it's real, maybe this time they mean it. But soon, the same patterns return, the same silence, the same sharpness, the same games that twist your heart into knots. And each time, you forgive, thinking love can fix what they break. It's not your fault. You were raised to believe apologies mean remorse, that people who hurt you want to do better, that love can change hearts. But narcissists don't apologize to heal, they apologize to reset the stage. Their words are empty because there is no empathy behind them. They're not sorry for the pain they caused, they're sorry they got caught. They're sorry you're angry. They're sorry their mask slipped. They're sorry their control wavered. But they are never sorry for the wound itself. And if you watch closely, you'll see it how their sorry always comes with a twist. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry, but you made me do it. I'm sorry. Can't we just move on? Notice how their apology centers them, not your pain. Notice how it ends the conversation, not opens it. You start to realize that every apology is just another performance. They say what you need to hear, not because they mean it, but because they know it will keep you. And you stay because your heart wants to believe that love can soften cruelty. But love doesn't live in empty words. Love is action, consistency, safety, and they will never offer that. They don't change because there is no part of them that sees what they did as wrong. Their actions aren't mistakes, they're choices. Choices made to maintain control, not connection. You cannot heal a relationship built on illusions. You cannot build peace on false apologies. And one day, after enough cycles, something shifts inside you. The tears dry faster. The excuses sound hollow. The charm loses its shine. You start to hear the truth beneath the apology, a whisper that says, I'll hurt you again. That's the moment your heart begins to awaken. You stop waiting for sincerity. You stop believing in the promise of change. You start seeing the pattern, and the pattern becomes louder than the words. And when you finally accept that their sorry was never for you but for them, you begin to grieve differently. You stop clinging to hope. You start building distance. It's a painful truth, but a liberating one. Their apology will never heal you because it was never meant to. The healing comes when you stop giving them access to your forgiveness. When you stop offering softness to someone who turns it into a weapon. When you stop confusing sorry with safety, because real healing doesn't happen through their words. It happens when you start believing your own, when you say, no more, when you whisper, I deserve better. When you walk away, not because you stopped loving, but because you started listening to the voice within you that's been whispering all along, This is not love. You deserve actions that match promises. You deserve consistency, not confusion. You deserve peace, not performance. And their sorry, it's just noise. Your silence, your absence, that's your truth. That's your power. The fifth truth they pray you'll never learn is that they will never change. You've waited, haven't you? Through the tears, the fights, the sleepless nights, the empty promises. You held on to every small glimpse of goodness, every rare act of kindness, thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe they finally see me. Maybe they're ready to grow. You told yourself love was patient, that healing takes time, that deep down, they just needed to be understood. But the truth is sharper than your hope can bear. They do not want to change. Because change would require self-awareness, accountability, humility, and a narcissist will do anything to protect the illusion that they are flawless. To change, they'd have to admit the damage they caused, and that's something their fragile ego cannot survive. So instead, they rewrite the story. They paint you as the overreactor. They turn their cruelty into misunderstanding. They twist every confrontation into proof that you are the problem. You can love them, support them, pray for them, but unless they see their reflection for what it truly is, they will remain the same. And they don't want to see it. They thrive in denial. They hide behind charm. They drown the truth in excuses. You've seen the cycle. The highs that feel like heaven, the lows that feel like hell. Each time you think, we'll get better. But what's broken isn't the relationship. It's the illusion that there ever was one built on truth. Because for them, love isn't about connection. It's about control. Growth isn't a goal. It's a threat. They don't evolve. They adapt just enough to keep you from leaving. And maybe you've held on to the memory of who they were in the beginning, that intoxicating version who made you feel alive. You keep waiting for that person to return, but that version was never real. It was a mask, a performance designed to earn your devotion. Once they had it, the mask slipped. You've tried everything: gentle conversations, desperate pleas, walking away, giving second chances, but each time you return to the same storm. Because narcissists don't change through love. They only change through loss, and even then, it's rarely genuine. They'll change their behavior long enough to pull you back in, but never their heart. And I know how heavy it feels to accept that, because hope is a beautiful thing, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a cage. You keep hoping the next apology will be different, the next promise will stick. But how many times have you heard, "I'll do better," only to end up back in the same pain? How many times have you given grace to someone who never intended to grow? Here's the truth. Love cannot heal someone who refuses to see they are sick. Compassion cannot awaken a conscience that's asleep by choice. You are not their savior. You are not their lesson. You are their mirror, and mirrors don't fix, they reflect. You deserve more than potential. You deserve presence. You deserve love that grows, not repeats. You deserve someone who doesn't need to destroy you to feel powerful. It's okay to stop waiting. It's okay to walk away, even if your heart still aches. Because staying won't change them. It will only change you into someone you no longer recognize. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally see the truth. They were never going to meet you where love lives. They wanted your devotion, not your growth. Your forgiveness, not your boundaries. Your silence, not your truth. But now, you know. And knowing is the first step toward freedom. You can't save someone who's addicted to their own reflection. You can only save the one who's been silently calling for rescue all along you. So let them stay who they are. You don't owe your life to their unwillingness to evolve. Your healing begins when you stop waiting for their transformation and start walking toward your own. Because the version of you who no longer waits, that's the one who finally gets to breathe. The sixth truth they pray you'll never learn is that their chaos is intentional because peace exposes them. You've probably noticed how every time things start to feel calm, something happens. A fight erupts out of nowhere. A cold silence sweeps in after a gentle moment. Just when your heart begins to settle, they do something, say something that pulls you right back into confusion. That's not coincidence, it's control. Narcissists can't survive in peace because peace invites clarity. And clarity reveals the truth that the problem isn't you, it's them. So they keep the storm alive. They spin chaos like a web, wrapping you in distraction. They ignite arguments over nothing, plant doubts where there was once trust, and shift moods so suddenly you start tiptoeing around them, desperate not to trigger the next explosion. You learn to anticipate the shift, the glare, the silence, the sting. You adjust, you adapt, you contort yourself into smaller shapes just to keep the air calm. But calm never lasts, because it's never meant to. They stir conflict not because they love drama, but because it keeps them in charge. When you're anxious, you focus on them. When you're confused, you question yourself. When you're walking on eggshells, you forget to notice the ground beneath you is not home. This constant chaos becomes a fog, a thick mist that blurs your vision. You lose track of time, of truth, of who you were before them. You start to believe the lie, that peace is a privilege you have to earn, not a right you deserve. And that's exactly how they want it. They want you exhausted, apologetic, uncertain, because a tired heart is easy to manipulate. They want you craving their approval so badly that even a crumb of kindness feels like a feast. They'll create distance, then return with sudden affection. They'll cause pain, then play savior. And every cycle draws you deeper into dependence, like a storm that breaks your shelter, then offers you shade. But here's what they fear most: the moment you stop reacting. Because when you stop feeding the chaos, when you stop chasing peace from the person who keeps destroying it, the mirror turns. You begin to see. You see how every fight was planted like a seed. You see how every silence was a strategy. You see how every apology was a rope pulling you back into the cycle. And slowly, the fog begins to lift. You start recognizing the calm not as a fragile gift, but as your birthright. You remember how it feels to breathe without fear, to speak without trembling, to rest without walking on eggshells. That's when their power fades, because narcissists can't control what they can't confuse. They'll call you cold when you stop reacting. They'll call you distant when you stop explaining. They'll call you selfish when you choose peace. But that's not selfishness, that's sovereignty. Peace is your rebellion. Silence is your shield. Clarity is your freedom. They wanted you to believe that chaos meant passion, that intensity meant love. But love isn't loud. Love is gentle. Love doesn't make you dizzy. It makes you grounded. Love doesn't keep you guessing. It helps you feel safe. You've spent too long mistaking turbulence for connection. But the truth is simple. Peace feels foreign only because you've been surviving the storm. Now it's time to walk into the stillness, to realize that your heart doesn't need rescuing from outside, it needs rest within. You don't need their approval. You don't need their apology. You need quiet. You need truth. You need distance from the noise that's been drowning out your own voice. When you finally stop dancing to the rhythm of their chaos, you begin to hear something softer, your own heartbeat, steady and sure. That's the sound of you returning home. And in that quiet, you discover a truth they never wanted you to know. You were never hard to love. You were just surrounded by someone who feared peace, because peace would have shown them who they truly are. Now you see it. Now you know. The seventh truth they pray you'll never learn is that their power dies the moment you stop needing their love. For so long, their approval was your oxygen. You tried to be softer, quieter, stronger, more forgiving, anything to keep their affection from slipping through your fingers. You mistook their attention for safety, their validation for worth. Every compliment felt like sunlight. Every silence felt like winter. They built an invisible leash from your longing, and you wore it believing it was love. But here's the truth. They fear more than anything. The day you stop chasing their love, they lose everything. Because their control thrives on your craving. They need you to ache for them. They need you to keep reaching, hoping, bending. They need your wounds open so they can feed on your healing. But the moment you turn inward, the moment you begin to source love from within, to see your reflection and whisper, "I am enough," the leash snaps. The illusion shatters. Their throne crumbles. They'll try harder when they sense it suddenly showering you with sweetness, promises, tears. They'll say they've changed, that they finally understand, that they can't live without you. But it's not love, it's panic. They're losing control, and they know it, because once you no longer need their validation, their manipulations fall flat. Once you stop seeking their approval, their silence loses power. Once you no longer fear losing them, they can't punish you with absence. That's why they work so hard to keep you doubting yourself. Because a person who knows their worth cannot be controlled. They don't love you, they need your need. And when your need fades, so does their grip. The journey to that freedom is not easy. It begins with heartbreak, the deep ache of realizing that the love you fought for was never real. But beneath that ache lies awakening. You start noticing small things, how peaceful you feel when they're not around, how your body relaxes when you stop trying to earn affection, how silence becomes healing instead of punishment. You start craving solitude more than their chaos. You start trusting your own voice more than their approval. That's the shift. That's the beginning of power. You learn that love is not something you beg for, it's something you embody. You realize your worth isn't determined by how someone treats you, but by how you choose to treat yourself. You see that their love was never the treasure you were, and they knew it. That's why they tried to own it. But they can't own what no longer needs their validation. So you stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop waiting, and instead, you rise quietly, steadily, beautifully. The old version of you, the one who pleaded, apologized, overgave, begins to dissolve. In her place emerges someone new, grounded, calm, whole. Someone who no longer confuses pain with passion. Someone who no longer mistakes control for care. Someone who understands that love should feel safe, not small. And that's when the narcissist panics. Because their worst fear isn't losing you, it's losing the version of you that needed them. They may try to return, they may promise the world, but you'll see through it now. The words that once melted you now sound hollow. The eyes that once felt magnetic now reveal emptiness. You'll feel nothing but clarity, because you finally know you don't need their love to feel whole. You don't need their apology to find closure. You don't need their presence to feel peace. You are your own source now, and that's what they never wanted you to realize. Their power was built on your longing, but your freedom is built on your truth. And when you choose yourself, not out of pride, but out of peace, you reclaim everything they tried to take. Your voice, your heart, your light. You walk away, not in anger, but in quiet strength, because you've seen behind the mask. You know their game, and you no longer wish to play. You don't hate them. You don't need them. You simply release them with love, with clarity, with finality, and in that release, you are free. Take a deep breath. You've made it here through the fog, through the heartbreak, through the truths they prayed you'd never see. You've faced the illusions, the cruelty, the manipulation. You've looked into the mirror of their false love and finally chosen to see yourself clearly. And now, the story begins again, not with them, but with you. You no longer need to chase love that hurts. You no longer need to explain pain to someone who enjoys causing it. You no longer need to wait for apologies that were never meant to heal. The truth may sting, but it also sets you free, because now you see that your love was never wasted. It revealed your capacity to give, to feel, to believe. That's not weakness, that's power. The narcissist's greatest fear has come true. You've awakened. You've reclaimed the love they tried to take. You've remembered that your heart is not a battlefield. It's a sanctuary. And only those who come in peace may enter. So walk forward gently, with compassion for who you were, the one who tried, who hoped, who stayed too long. She was not foolish. She was faithful. But now, it's time for freedom. It's time for peace. It's time to come home to yourself. If these words have touched your heart, if you've felt seen in this quiet space, stay connected. Join this circle where healing isn't rushed, where your story matters, where you are never alone. Subscribe, not out of obligation, but because your soul is ready to keep rising. Share this message with someone who's still searching in the dark so they too can find the light. And remember, you are not broken. You are awakening, and this is only the beginning.